It started with 56 strong, well-built men. 56 out of 5,000 who applied now stood before him. These were the chosen ones, those who would dare to go where no others had been, across the continent of Antarctica. Shackleton had his own ways of interviewing and choosing his crew. He did not choose his men by the size of their physique or the sweat of their brow, but by utilizing the fewest questions he could ask and by judging their ability to be loyal and faithful to the expedition. Size and strength did not matter to him. It was only their determination and loyalty that mattered, because these are the qualities they would need to survive. The crew included meteorologists, biologists, navigators, a photographer, medical staff, vets, and even a team of dogs that would aid in the travel across Antarctica. It was a diverse group. These men may not have been the finest crew in the expedition industry, but in the end, even though they did not know it, they would be putting their lives in each other's hands. Men who knew nothing of each other would be bonded together for survival. It began far before the crew had been selected. It began far before the ship had been purchased. It began with Ernest Shackleton himself. Of Irish descent, he had a love for adventure from the time he was a young child. His love of reading had taken his mind on endless adventures, but left him restless in his real life. At 16, he began an apprenticeship on a British sailing ship that would take him to sea and to the far corners of the earth. It was here that he would develop a need for adventure, no matter how unrealistic some of them were. It was here that he would learn to lead. After years at sea, he had grown into a man known for his successful leadership and ability to achieve the goals of each of his expeditions. It was early in 1914, though, that Shackleton made his declaration that he would be the first person to make the 1,800-mile trek across Antarctica. He felt that this expedition would be a greater journey than the journey to the pole and back. With that said, he started to raise funds to set sail with 2 crews and 2 ships bound for Antarctica. Most funds were raised from private donors. The first ship, the Endurance, would carry Shackleton and his men who would cross the continent of Antarctica. She would be named after the motto of his family, "By endurance we conquer." The second ship, the Aurora, would put into McMurdo Sound on the opposite side of the continent in the Ross Sea. The crew of the Aurora would lay down food stores from their base to the pole, while Shackleton and his crew would make their way towards the pole, living only on the food they could carry. Shackleton had no doubt that this plan would work, and that he would accomplish his goal, not only for Britain, but also for himself. He was so confident, in fact, that he promised investors that he would write a book about the expedition, that the photographs would be available to them, and a movie would detail the entire adventure. Shackleton planned on living through this adventure, the adventure of his lifetime. Shackleton was 40 years old. He was a true seaman. He had a look that could change from happy to humorous to steel, depending on the necessary mood. He was always confident and always had a purpose. He had spent months in 1914 readying the ship and the supplies. Little did he know that the same day he had chosen to set sail would be a landmark day. It would be a day that would bring a turning point in world history, because it was the same day that Germany declared war on France, beginning the First World War. Shackleton was torn between a loyalty to his expedition and a loyalty to his country of Britain. Britain was now planning their own attack against Germany. After much debate, Shackleton sought the government's approval to continue the expedition. Within hours, he received such word from Winston Churchill, directing him to continue on his way. 5 days later, on August 1st, 1914, Shackleton launched his crew of 56 from Plymouth, England, in their 1912 three-sailed barquentine sailing ship. With the boat finally crossing the waves of the sea, the crew would spend the next 18 days sailing to Buenos Aires, Argentina, where they would meet Captain Shackleton, who had stayed behind and finished business. The Endurance was a beautiful vessel. She wasn't overly large, but was large enough. She had a sleek black hull that hid her strength. Her hull had been planked with wood that was stronger than any other. Her keel was oak, 7 feet thick to be exact. Her bow was reinforced and 4 feet thick, and specially designed to face the packs of ice that lay ahead. She was believed to be one of the strongest Norwegian sailing ships ever built. The Endurance, like Shackleton, was confident in her abilities to survive. The Endurance reached Buenos Aires on October 9, 1914. It was a mere 17 days later that she left port again, destined for the desolate island of South Georgia, just off the tip of South America. From here, from this tiny island in the Atlantic Ocean, the Endurance, with Shackleton and her crew, would say goodbye to land and head out into the open ocean towards an unknown land and an unknown outcome. It was October 26th. 2 months later, the crew would cross the Antarctic Circle, destined for a vast land of ice and desolation. They were drawing ever closer to the true beginning of their adventure. Within days, on the horizon, they would spot the land for the first time. With its icy floes, it would welcome them in, open-armed. It would entice them closer, pulling them towards this place called Antarctica. It would beckon them towards their goal. It would use their confidence against them. It would convince them that the impossible was possible and just within reach. Little did they know or believe that on January 18th, the same waters that drew them in would turn against them, trapping them in an icy wilderness, pulling them down to a fate they would never have imagined.